Hi YouTube friends, fellow drummers and gear nerds. Welcome to episode 4 of Banging on a Budget. And yesterday we reviewed this kit, Maxwin MIJ stencil kit manufactured by Pearl. And today I'm going to talk about another find. And it's not a super bargain in that it's not a sub $100, $14.80 snare drum like yesterday. But it is a $100 bargain. Now if you look at the lugs, they're pretty unique. I'd never seen them before. And so I jumped on the internet when I saw this drum come up on eBay, and I found that these belong to Legend Drums. Never heard of Legend Drums, so I checked into that, and they were a company back in the 90s that was owned by Cayman, which owned Gibson, and they were a custom drum manufactured in Gibson's Ovation guitar plant. And Cayman had a tough quarter or two, and ultimately disbanded the company known as Legend. But for a year or two, they made some excellent drums, some excellent snare drums. And I found that because they're rare and because they were high quality and sought after, or they became sought after, and in some cases commanded a good price. I saw a guy from a video in 2012 who had a drum this size, and he was asking $6.99 for it and $4.99 for a 5.5 by 14 snare drum. So I jumped on this thing like a cheap suit and got it sent to me. Now, after I bid on it and got it, I started noticing some things. I said, well, it looks like it's got re-rings. I don't think Legend had re-rings. So I went in, I found out, no, they didn't have re-rings. It had triple flange hoops. And Legend, as far as I knew, had die-cast hoops. And then something I didn't notice till I almost had the drum in my hands, and this is one of the things I looked for early, I don't know how I missed it. It has 6 lugs instead of 8 or 10. But if you've seen my other videos, you know that I found that 6 lug drums resonate very nicely and are not some hideous thing to be avoided, like, I don't want to say anything politically incorrect. But I pointed this out to the seller, and before the drum even got here, and he had a no return policy, but he said, hey, look, I didn't know much about it. He says, I'll send you a returns good authorization, I'll pay for the freight, blah, 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 blah. But in the meantime, I threw an Evans hat on there, and what do I have on the bottom? A Remo Ambassador hazy, and I started tweaking, and I found the drum was really loud, but yet warm and funky. And then, because I'm a geek collecting vintage Japanese kits, and I like the mojo and the history behind instruments, I said, I'm going to keep this thing. And when I got it, it's a great looking drum, but somebody, if you can't probably see it in the camera, but somebody did an okay job. It looks kind of pretty from a distance. Okay job of restaining it. It's got the re-rings. But it's somebody's custom work of art. I don't know if this is an old Japanese kit that someone went to the trouble putting this heavy-duty, beautiful hardware on, or if this is an old Slingerland that someone said was worth putting this kind of kind of equipment on. I don't know. Don't know the history of the drum, but it's become over the last month or two my kind of go-to rock and roll drum. And I love the sound of it. Let me give you a little taste of it. Now, I did have it detuned somewhat. Let's see if I change that. Should have done this before I started the video. I think I did have this thing cranked down a little bit. Alright, that sounds pretty good. Now, I'm one of these idiots. I buy piccolo snares, I buy 4-inch snares, I buy 5.5 and 5 by 14-inch snares, and I buy 6.5 inch by 14-inch snares, so I can have an arsenal of numerous sounds. And then I knock myself out going crazy, putting heads on them and moon gelling them and taping them and tweaking them so that they all end up sounding about like that. I like it crisp and clean, no caffeine. I like a crisp drum, generally speaking. But for a lot of contemporary music and rock and roll, you want something more in the medium to even low, or as I call it, swamp dog area. And I got a little trick, because you got all these drums, your arsenal for all your different sounds. You're not going to carry those on a gig with you. What you want to be able to do is play some funky, James Brown thing or a drum and bass thing, and then you want to be able to switch to a more contemporary, funky rock and roll, deeper sound, and maybe a blues thing or a Jim Croce thing with a big loose snare drum. You're not going to carry 3 snare drums. What you're going to do is try and screw with your drum and throw your wallet on it and do all that kind of stuff. As I've mentioned before, this guy Maslow, he makes drums, very excellent drums, most of them metal, and he had a little trick that I saw, and he detunes a couple lugs a little bit. So I'm going to take this thing, and I'm going to go to the 2 o'clock position, take a full half turn, and I'm going to go to the 10 o'clock position, do a full half turn. Starting to get it into the mid-range. You do another quarter turn, and I think this is going to be about where I typically like it. Pretty funky drum. I like it high, I like it low, I like it in between. You can take this thing another, you can actually kind of go to detune almost. I'm taking another full half turn, so we got a full turn and a quarter. Yeah. A killer sound. It's still not detuned. I'm taking it. Lost track now. I'll have to tune this up. Tell you what, $100, I'd take this on a gig tomorrow, and I'm thrilled with it. Hell of a bargain. As I'm banging on these cymbals, I had a young guy teaching me drums in Connecticut, trying to teach an old guy new tricks. His name is Nick DeRico, and he's a hell of an instructor. If you're in the New Haven, Hartford, Wallingford, Connecticut area, if you're looking for a good drummer, or if you're looking for a good instructor, he's a great guy. And he just built a beautiful studio in a separate building outside his house. So if you're looking to record in that area, go look Nick up. Nick is the drum phenom son I never had, and I'm the uncle who really appreciated his drumming that he never had. And we've remained friends even though I haven't lived in Connecticut for years. And he talked to me and said, you know, mention to people about your Wuhan cymbals that, you know, they're thinner than American cymbals. And I in particular got a thin crash and a 16 or 15 and a thin 16, and then I got a Bliss thin 17-inch crash. And what's great about these, especially for popular music, is they're like a fast crash. They get in, they get out, they make a statement, but they don't hang around with all this reverberation muddying up the whole mix. They're great cymbals. Now you hear the sustain now because there's no other instrumentation. But if there was, you know, if I was in a group band setting, that's here and gone. And this here, the ride, it's a 20-inch ride. They promote the medium heavy a lot in their offering, but this is a medium, a little thinner. And I think it sounds great for the money. I got to tell you, maybe great just period. And if you wanted to do a little jazz, of course I got a Muddy Swamp snare drum here, but they're just great, just great. And I love these old Japanese stencil kits. By the way, if you want to see some more Japanese stencil kit stuff and you're just into that, or you're thinking about getting into it, there's a guy, Buckin' Billy Ray Smith. He's on YouTube. Just look up Buckin, B-U-C-K-I-N, Buckin' Billy Ray Smith, and he's got, I guarantee he's got 20, but he's probably got 30 to 40 as near as I can tell, vintage Japanese kits and vintage Premier, Sonar, and Ludwig kits. And he owns a tree service, and a lot of his content revolves around that. He does, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 videos every day, most of it about his work. But if you go to the channel, you'll see that he's got, you know, 20 or 30 videos on vintage kits, in particular a lot of vintage. He loves Star, Stewart, Majestic, Raven kits that he's restored. And what he does too is he reworks by hand without machinery. By hand, he reworks some of the edges on those drums, and they just resonate like crazy. And he's got a great personality. I mean, he's a character. He's building a great channel. So, Buckin' Billy Ray Smith, if you're interested in these type of drums, please check that out. He's a great character. He's got a great channel. Anyway, that's my $100 mystery snare. In theory, a legend, but I don't think it is, but maybe it'll become a legend. Lots more drums and cymbals and things to talk about. Thank you guys for looking. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please leave a comment. Let me know what kind of bargains you've scored. Let me know what kind of kits you're collecting, and you know, how you're banging on a budget, or maybe not banging on a budget. And tell me about your expensive kits. I just like talking about drums and equipment and music. So, and I'm trying to build a channel of people. I want this to be a space where drummers can hang and have some fun and communicate with each other. Anyway, look forward to having another video and hearing your comments. Thank you. Bye-bye.